Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Hello there, welcome along to this evening's Off the Ball. We have got a good one for you tonight. Ronan O'Gara and Brian O'Driscoll in conversation between 8 and 9 is coming your way. This hour we're going to have Neil Mellor remembering Liverpool's Champions League winning season in 2005. And on the football show, very happy to say, we'll have a familiar face and voice if you listen to 5 Live. Or I presume you all watch Match of the Day too. Mark Chapman, aka Chappers, is going to be with us for a feature interview between 9 and 10. So really good lineup on the show this evening. 53106, as ever, is the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. I have alongside me, sort of, Richie McCormack. Hello, sir.
How are you, Joe? How are you?
Joe. Very well, very well. The weather is only glorious.
The what, sorry?
The weather.
Stop. Sure, listen, I had to pull down the blind again. It got to the stage where it's so nice today, Joe, that it was annoying me because I'm sat here and once it goes past 5 o'clock, the sun comes literally right in on top of my desk. So there came a point where I just had to say no more. I will say goodbye to the sun for the day. I'll pull down the blind and I'll hunker down and basically hibernate for the evening. I've become a crank, Joe. I've become like one of the twits. Beard and all.
Well, they say your true personality shines in a time of crisis, so that sounds about right to me.
I know, yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. I can always rely on you for the old pats on the back and the words of encouragement in these dark and gloomy times.
Listen, you're doing the right thing, and most importantly, staying home this bank holiday weekend was the message we heard in the bulletin there. However sunny it gets, you are staying put, everybody. Nathan Murphy, you will be staying put. Hello? Nathan Murphy.
Oh, it's kicking off. Brian Casa Murphy.
Oh, it's just kicked off. We've just had a rescue. An 18-month-old at full speed diving towards the camera. But Mother Murphy came in and rescued and redeemed the situation.
Well, look, Nathan, you've got several more months of it to go, so hang in there, okay?
I'm liking how on brand Nathan is, that his background is one of the pages from offtheball.com on his telly, no less. He's gone big style.
I just sit here all day, just keeping abreast of the latest news as our news team keeps things ticking over, just so I don't miss anything.
You're watching for my typos is what you're actually doing, isn't it?
Exactly. Matty Kenny says, today we're all part of the one team.
That's one of Steve-O's, not mine. So you can go and appraise that as much as you want.
Fair enough. How are we all keeping?
Grand, yeah.
So there, I got to say, a tasty enough show coming up. Ronan O'Gara and Brian O'Driscoll in conversation. That is between 8 and 9. Mark Chapman on the way between 9 and 10. We would have to say, Nathan, a damn fine broadcaster. Mark Chapman does a very good job on Match of the Day too. Not an easy show to do in some ways. And he's on the way between 9 and 10. Are you a Chapman fan?
Oh, I'm a massive Chappers fan. He will be top of the heap there, without question. He's just that nice, relaxed manner. It's Sunday night. It's just that little bit different. He's just got a touch of class about him as well. He knows when to take it seriously and when not to take it seriously. And he's also a very nice man because I've only met him properly once. And Kevin Kilbane tried to hang me out to dry. So they were recording Match of the Day too. This is about 6 months ago at Goodison Park. Actually, now that I think about it, you may not be impressed with this, Joe, but so on the way to the game, Kilbane was working for the BBC and I was doing commentary for Off the Ball. Kilbane had obviously rang Chappers to try and set him up for this. So I go over and say hello to Kev, and he's with Chappers. And just as I'm about to say hello, Chappers goes, "Oh, you're the guy." And he goes, "No, I'm not going to do it. Kevin rang me earlier and said that when you came over, the first thing you should say is, 'Oh, you're the guy who always comes second in the Sports Broadcaster of the Year category.'" And Chappers said, "I'm not going to do that because us commentators have got to stick together."
That is typical Kilbane. He's just a bad person.
That is typical Kilbane, but it also shows just the class of Mark Chapman. That he didn't let me humiliate myself.
He's got a crazy work ethic. Like, he does the NFL stuff on top of Match of the Day too, on top of the 5 Live stuff. Now, I'm not saying that any of us are slackers by any means, but like the amount that must go into each and every one of those shows in terms of preparation, research, and all the rest of it. Like, he must never actually get home and see his family. He must be delighted for this shutdown at the moment.
Well, to a point. We'll chat to him between 9 and 10. So he's on the way. Also does the Masters as well. 5 Live's radio commentary of the Masters is generally fantastic, and he's often very integral to all that. So he's on the way. Ronan O'Gara and Brian O'Driscoll, they're just chewing the fat for an hour about a range of things. There's a good moment, we did it earlier, where O'Gara tries to explain to O'Driscoll that actually him being out of the game is a good thing and he should still think about management. So I don't know, this may be where O'Gara with O'Driscoll as his number 2 for Ireland started. We're certainly hoping that might be the case in a couple of years' time. And then, Nathan, Neil Mellor. Neil Mellor's interesting in that 0405 bursts on the scene, gets injured in March, has to have surgery, so doesn't actually make Istanbul, has not played hundreds of games for Liverpool, and yet every Liverpool fan straight away will know the Arsenal goal in the last few minutes in that November of 04. And the more eagle-eyed viewers and those with a better memory will know it was his fantastic, and I emphasise the word fantastic, cushioned header for the Gerrard goal against Olympiacos when Andy Gray said, take a bow, son, and all that business. So that was kind of it for him. You know, he got a rather cold, thanks, Neil, we don't need you anymore, pretty promptly after that season. But he has lingered on in the memories of Liverpool fans in a big way.
Well, he lingers on as well because he was one of those players that was talked about for years before he finally made a bit of a breakthrough into the first team. He was setting all sorts of goal-scoring records at reserve level. And people expected so much when he arrived. And in many ways, it's a shame that he sort of had that 10-day spell. I'll never forget that goal against Arsenal. It's one of my favourite Liverpool goals. I was in Thailand. It was 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. And it was just one of these totally unexpected moments. It's similar in a way to the goal, totally different in how it was scored, but to Divock Origi against Everton in the Merseyside derby. The game was done. It had been a brilliant game. Xabi Alonso scored a class opener for Liverpool. Patrick Vieira finished off this wonderful team mood from Arsenal. It was a smashing game, and people were sort of starting to leave the ground. It was done. It was a 1-1 draw. People had switched off, and then out of absolutely nothing, he scores this worldie. Just this sensational strike. It was one of the great Liverpool goals. And then, as you say, 10 days later in the Olympiacos game, comes off the bench, scores within, 90 seconds, and then he's the man who provides the assist for one of the most famous Liverpool goals of all time.
So he's on the way at about 7:30. Should mention as well, OTBAM have kicked off their Mount Rushmore series in a big way. So Mount Rushmore, often a reference point on this show down the years. So finally, we have the space to do this thing properly. All 32 counties. I mean, we're in for the long haul here, folks. All 32 counties of Mount Rushmore. I kid you not. Tomorrow morning, I mean, Cork, of all places, Cork. I mean, this is going to be tough. We've done Mayo already. Nathan, you were given the honour of picking Mount Rushmore's Mayo.
Dear God, it was a stress. It's the most stressed I've been since this entire outbreak started. Sunday night, I was awake at about 1 a.m. just trying to get my head together as what the criteria should be. And even when I've selected it, I'm still not quite sure what my criteria was. People I have a general fondness for definitely had a bit of a head start.
Yes, anyone who's friends with you for a start got in.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how many off-the-ball pundits get in over the course of this. So will O'Gara get in tomorrow in Cork? What happens with Dublin? Do both Giles and O'Driscoll get in?
Yeah, Dublin's the other tough one. I think Harrington has to start. You know, Harrington in, Giles in, O'Driscoll in. The spaces fill up quickly. You went with Cora, Liam McHale, McDonald, and remind me of the fourth.
Kevin Kilban.
Oh, of course. Yes, Kevin Kilban.
That's just embarrassing for all concerned.
Cork. Who's straight away in for Cork? Sonia?
Well, I feel like Cork is sort of straightforward. But my Twitter account tells me different from the angry Cork people I've had having a go at me.
Cork people angry?
Sonia.
Yeah.
Roy.
Yeah.
Raj. So the three of them, they don't even need their full name and everybody knows who they are. So therefore they deserve to be up there. And then Christy Ring.
So who are we not thinking of there?
JBM is the one that keeps coming up.
Yeah, in fairness, I think JBM would probably be in my 4 if I was picking Cork. I think I'd have Sonia and Christy Ring would probably be in there, and JBM would probably be the other. So like JBM's like a mythical figure down there. I don't think we fully get the nature of how revered that man is in that county. And especially because he has such a habit of keeping himself to himself, and post-management has been a pretty quiet time for Jimmy Barry, but like he's a god down there for what he did on and off the pitch for them. So yeah, I can absolutely see why Cork people will be voting for JBM.
So the interesting conversation, obviously, who are you leaving out?
Dennis Irwin's been left out. I don't like that for a start.
So Richie, would you leave out Raj or Roy?
Raj. JBM's in for Raj for me, Clive.
Yeah, it's going to get messy. That's tomorrow morning. So Nathan, has this thing been voted in yet, or is it actually happening tomorrow morning?
No, it's happening tomorrow morning. Colin Buhig is the man, our digital editor is the man who's very much going to step up and select the 4. And then that's it. They are carved in stone. The public's opinion,
Literally.
It carries a certain amount of weight in that if you can really get at somebody, it's a test of their character to stand over their selection. So I've got dogs abuse from the people of Mayo for many reasons. Willie Joe Padden, a lot feel should be in. Lee Keegan should be in a Footballer of the Year, something that Ciara MacDonald and Lee McHale never achieved. Martin Sheridan, which was the difficult one, who won just the 5 Olympic gold medals and 9 Olympic medals in total. But as somebody did point out, it is Mayo, so medals are sort of irrelevant to success.
We do have to push on. There is much to discuss. Richie has the news round, which will include interesting news from FIFA. So I'm going to keep this next thing brief, Richie. I emphasize brief. I'm only putting this to you because you have to talk golf at times. There is a text in. What did Richie make of WrestleMania? I thought it was poor enough myself.
It had its high points and it had its very low moments as well. The highs were very good. The low moments, the fact that it went ahead at all, is very, very questionable because obviously there was no fans there. But, dear Texter, myself, William O'Callaghan and Michael Verney will be reviewing WrestleMania and indeed the following Raw on the next Off the Top Rope podcast, which is going to be recorded tonight and should be available in your ear holes by about midnight, hopefully, and then definitely in the morning. So look out for that. Nice. I get to get the podcast plug in for once.
This next text, Nathan, you don't get a chance to respond to this, and we're going straight into Richie's news round, but I think it's important to read it out because it starts with, that Nathan Murphy is a muppet. Willie Joe Padden has to be on the Mayo one. Kevin Kilbane being chosen ahead of Willie Joe is a disgrace.
Kevin Kilbane played 110 times for Ireland without missing a competitive game for 10 years. International football. That's the most controversial thing you've ever said in this show. Say it to his face when he gets back from Canada, Richie, and see how
I
you get on.
absolutely will. Although the chances of him coming back from Canada are,
I stand over it. I stand over it.
Let's start this news round. So potentially, I mean, it really did look, particularly post 2017, when FIFA looked into the Qatar World Cup and the Russian World Cup, said, look, we conducted a thorough investigation and everything was dandy and above board. It just kind of looked like, even though everybody knew something very suspect had probably happened, common sense told you that, and various dispatches told you that, it looked like it would just happen. The 2 World Cups would happen without any further fuss. So the FBI have been on the case, and we've had very interesting developments over in New York.
Yeah, prosecutors in New York, this story broke last night, have alleged that 4 members of FIFA's executive committee took bribes during the voting process for those 2018 and 2022 World Cups. A report by World Football's governing body in 2017, as you said, Joe, found no evidence of any wrongdoing. Disgraced former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner is alleged in an indictment to have received $5 million to vote for Russia in 2010. The indictment also claims that Ricardo Teixeira and Nicolas Leos, both former prominent figures in South America, took money for their votes for Qatar in 2022. For former Russia 2018 organising committee CEO Alexei Sorokin came out today and told TASS, the Russian news agency, that they've completed all investigations, answered all questions, and provided all the banking information of the application committee, all accounts and statements to prove to the world that they were not involved in any deeds. We should remind ourselves that some of their computers were destroyed before they could be actually examined, while Qatar this evening have strongly denied any wrongdoing, say they followed the rules of the application process to a T.
Yeah, I was trying to get a feel for just how significant this is. I certainly reading a few dispatches, like the BBC say that never before has the detail been laid out like this, with all the names and who exactly was offered bribes and who exactly allegedly accepted bribes. So we've never actually had this level of detail, even though we've had various allegations. Now, interestingly, it doesn't say, and they didn't say in court, who is behind the bribes. I mean, we can make our assumptions, but they never actually said who gave the bribes. And FIFA have now offered their full cooperation. So we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, you suspect FIFA have conducted their investigation. That's going to be of a certain nature. It's whether or not in a New York court, Nathan, this thing goes further. That's going to be the fascinating thing over the next few years. I mean, one suspects the 2022 World Cup goes ahead.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of house of cards this is, that if it does go to court in New York, those who are named and those who aren't named, who they're going to bring down with them. I'd imagine there's a lot of people sweating in a lot of organizations. This seems to put a lot more detail and probably a lot of the rumor and conjecture that's gone over the last few years. But ultimately, it's too late in terms of this World Cup. It's impossible to see a scenario, I think, at this stage where Qatar 2022 doesn't go ahead. An awful lot of these people are probably moving on and out of the major sporting organizations and moving out of FIFA.
One of them's
dead. So while justice may well be served, it'll be too late for the sport of football.
FIFA themselves said the ethics committee has already imposed sanctions, including life bans on football officials mentioned in the process. So the likes of Leos, the likes of Teixeira, the likes of Jack Warner and Salamara from Guatemala have all been basically cast out of the garden already. So there's not much the FIFA can actually do with the findings of this indictment. If the people involved aren't there anymore, they can simply say that this will never happen again and we'll all move on and make sure the bid processes are cleaner than clean next time. But it's going to leave a smell, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sure will. Rich, FIFA have moved to clarify the situation around contracts up at the end of June.
Yeah, they've announced guidelines that they hope will avoid contractual chaos at clubs come the summer. Standard deals, as you might know, run until June 30th, but most seasons across Europe are envisaging an end date beyond that point, which would leave players in limbo. But FIFA have agreed that contracts can be amended to expire only when the player's season has ended. And with regards to transfer windows, obviously these are going to chop and change depending on when seasons end and when they begin. All requests for new dates should be approved as long as they comply with the 16-week limit within existing laws.
Seems like a reasonable solution for now. Meanwhile, Kevin Doyle was on with the lads this morning.
Yeah, he says he would have given Mick McCarthy the chance to manage the Republic of Ireland at the European Championships. The former striker was speaking on this morning's OTBAM. Doyle's former international teammates, Keith Andrews and Damien Duff, will be part of Stephen Kenny's backroom team. And the former Cork City man says Duff's transition to coaching has taken him somewhat by surprise.
He's not doing it because, I don't know his financial situation, but I'd imagine he's not doing it for the money. And, he was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to have the Shamrock Rovers under 15s in training. He was putting the hard yards in. It wasn't something I think he thought about too much during his career. I want to be a coach. I don't think he told me the last thing he wanted to do, I think he said to me, was be a coach. So yeah, it is purely a love of, once he did it, a little bit of it, he loves it. He's passionate about it. He, that's what you have to be at your job. And he moved his family home to Ireland and was set up here. And then for work, he moved over to Scotland to work with Celtic. And it's a big commitment to do that when you don't need to do it. And that just shows his feelings for coaching and how he wants to develop and get better and improve himself. And, he started all over again as a coach. Being a top player to starting with underage teams and getting his badges and doing it that way and discovering, I suppose, his method and his style and his way of going about it. And it looks like he's he's got a long-term plan to be, I'd imagine, be the Ireland manager one day, or be a manager in the Premier League or the Aircom League or whatever it may be. But he seems to be going about it the right way.
The Aircom League, electricity, people banging their hands against the table.
So as soon as Kevin Doyle left the little league, it's just like it's basically however you leave the league. There's some people who probably still refer to it as the Pack Race Kentucky Fried Chicken League, but those are few and far between.
It's going to be fascinating to see how Duff gets on, because he's obviously on that pro license course at the moment alongside Keith Andrews. And if you talk to anyone who's on that course, who has been around Keith Andrews when he talks coaching and talks about Jose Mourinho and all he learned under Jose Mourinho, it's meant to be just fascinating that he managed to absorb so much and has brought so much of it into what he plans to be as a coach. And anytime you've read interviews, like you think back to what Kevin referenced there, having the Shamrock Rovers under 15s up at 6:30 in the morning, realising that as much time on a ball and in training as possible is what these players need to be doing. He clearly has very strong opinions of how he feels things should be done in this country, so that can only be a real positive.
The thing that strikes me about this managerial team as well is that it seems like it's one that works together. It seems like it's a natural fit for everybody, whereas before it was big name and big name, big name and big name, and then a dominant manager and kind of his regular sidekick. Whereas this seems like a couple of different parties coming together, each of which kind of has the same view upon the game, I guess.
Yeah, and Keith Andrews is not a shrinking violet. He will give his own opinion. Duff, from what we've seen, is headstrong enough as well to give his own opinion. So there's a good balance there, and you suspect if they're hearing things from players or have thoughts on how the game should be played on a given occasion, they'll put those to Stephen Kenny, which is clearly what Kenny wants. So that's a very promising sign, because it's the sign of a secure manager, which is all important here. And meanwhile, in the world of rugby, so this is all kind of happening over the last 48 hours. Bernard Laporte is desperate to become vice chairman of World Rugby, and he's put forward new plans for a Club World Cup, effectively. And the EPCR are not happy because Bernard's plans involve just completely scrapping the Heineken Champions Cup.
Yeah, you mentioned yesterday that it seems like all cards are on the table as regards rugby at the moment, but we kind of went off the air as almost the EPCR were formulating the statement accusing French rugby president Bernard Laporte of being disrespectful. He unveiled plans for an annual Club World Cup that he says would replace the Heineken Champions Cup, but the EPCR say talks have been held about such a competition to complement the Champions Cup, and one that would only be held every 4 years. European rugby chiefs say their sole focus remains rearranging the knockout stages of this season's Champions Cup and Challenge Cup.
What Laporte is proposing, I mean, in some respects it could be quite exciting, but effectively he's saying, Nathan, Heineken Champions Cup does not make enough money, so let's just get rid of it. I mean, great tournament, but let's get rid of it. He wants a Club World Cup every year. Takes 6 weekends of the year. You'll have Pro 14 teams, Top 14 English teams as well. You'll have 6 from Super Rugby. You'll have the US champions, the Japanese champions, 5 groups of 4. Away you go, and it'll bring in a truckload of money, and you scrap the Heineken Champions Cup as we know it. Obviously, EPCR not happy. Now, it's hard to know how all this plays out. I'm sure this is actually going to become a bit like the GAA championship structures conversation, where every person that you meet in the world of rugby now is going to have a new solution to the calendar. But it's really coming now. Like, this is it. In 5 years' time, you suspect this thing is all changed.
Yeah, it definitely sounds that way, considering the amount of proposals that have been put out and the amount of issues that it seems this shutdown, however short it is going to be, is going to cause rugby. But like, is there going to be that excitement for a World Rugby League? Like, the Heineken Champions Cup is a great competition, particularly when you get those seasons where all the major countries are taking it seriously. And maybe you end up in a situation where the Pro 14 is the one that loses out and the Heineken Champions Cup becomes more of a league, a European league that's a feeder into this World Series. But I just think the way the Heineken Champions Cup is set up, that there's so many brilliant games, it generally always goes right down to the wire. And also you develop rivalries over the years between whether it's Munster and Leinster going to Glasgow, Edinburgh, any of these places. And I just think it has the history, whereas you need away fans. I know you need TV revenue. It does feel as though you need supporters to be able to go. Like, one of the great things about Munster is the support. Leinster's taking that on as well. Thousands upon thousands going to the south of France to follow their team. Like, that's gone.
Yeah, but the thing about it is with the Champions Cup, like, we're very much looking at it with Irish eyes. You look at the attendances that pitch up for, say, an Edinburgh game at Murrayfield for a Champions Cup game. They're pitiful. Some of the attendances for the Welsh provinces in Europe have been really, really bad. And as you mentioned there, we rely on seasons where every league or every group of teams takes it seriously or decides they want to have a run at it. There's been improved prize money and all that down to the last 2 years or so. But generally, there is a year where one or two nations don't necessarily take it as seriously as maybe the Irish do or a couple of English clubs do. France have been accused of it in the past. Welsh and Scottish teams kind of say, why should we bother? We've bigger fish to fry. They might have the Anglo-Celt Cup to look after as well. Like, it's a strange one. But the fans issue is one that actually is definitely needs highlighting, because the idea of seeing the best teams in the world grouped together for 6 weeks somewhere in around May seems like an attractive proposition, but if there's actually no one there watching it, it could be a very, very ugly one.
Yeah. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, meanwhile, he's been talking.
Yeah, he says footballers have been an easy target and says criticism of them has been unfair during the coronavirus crisis. English football's response to the crisis has come under intense scrutiny, particularly given the decision by some clubs to furlough non-playing staff. Indeed, today Sunderland have furloughed their entire squad. FA Chairman Greg Clark insists Premier League clubs are not immune to the financial impact of football's coronavirus shutdown. The first 4 classics of the British flat season were postponed today. The 2,000 and 1,000 guineas at Newmarket, as well as the Derby and the Oaks at Epsom, will all need to be rescheduled. The Jockey Club took the decision to postpone the May and June cards as a result of the continued COVID-19 crisis. While the Spanish Federation, the Players Union there and La Liga have all agreed to conditions that would see their season completed. La Liga President Javier Tebas vowed today to see the season completed. With that in mind, all parties have agreed to play matches every 72 hours at most, with a pair of drinks breaks per half. They're going to be playing on into July and August, it seems. Tebas says they're considering restarting their season in late May or June, and games could be played behind closed doors just to get it done. While the KNVB have agreed that the Dutch season should also be completed. Between 8 and 9 rounds of matches, depending on the team, remain in the Eredivisie, and all big clubs have agreed that they want to finish out the season. The KNVB are targeting a June 19th return, with players allowed to train from mid-May, but only if they receive the green light from the Dutch government.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I saw Spain, the death rate went back up again today after hopes over the last few days that it was heading in the right direction. So, look, who knows with all of this? It goes without saying. Somebody has texted in to say, meant Rushmore, we are forgetting Ireland's first Olympic gold medalist, Dr. Pat O'Callaghan. He won gold for the hammer in 1928 and again in 1932. He would have won it again in 1936 if Ireland had sent a team, as he was the world record holder at that time. Dr. Pat from Banter, County Cork. It's a strong argument, Nathan Murphy.
Who are you taking out, Joe? You taking out Roy Keane? You
I'm
taking
not
out
taking
Raj?
out any, just including people I want in. That's the popular route.
Yeah. You're just adding. You're just adding to your Mount Rushmore. Yeah, the historical context is the most difficult part of all of this, because we obviously have no memory of that whatsoever. We've no footage of that. So there's always going to be a strong recency bias into things we've seen and things we've heard. So unfortunately, I think a lot of those from 80, 90, 100 years ago are probably going to miss out.
Yeah, it's the unfairness of it, I suspect. Just two last stories, Richie, if you can. The qualification for Olympics, and then Sunderland have made a decision on furloughing.
Yeah, qualification for the Tokyo Olympics, that's been put on hold until the 1st of December. The game's already been pushed back to next year due to the COVID-19 outbreak. World Athletics have also confirmed that they've furloughed 50% of their staff, but say they'll continue to receive full pay. And as you mentioned there, Sunderland have furloughed their first team, their academy squads and all backroom staff. They've all been placed on the UK government's coronavirus job retention scheme. The League One clubs say they remain fully committed to ensuring all employees are paid in full.
I guess League One sides, they are going to struggle that bit more than Premier League sides. Have you been watching season 2 of Sunderland Till I Die, Nathan?
I haven't started it just yet. I just finished the Tiger, what's his name? Tiger King. Yeah, sort of died a death as it was going on. It felt like the first 3-4 episodes was really building up to something, and then you're just like, yeah. So I might start Sunderland tonight. Have you watched it yet?
Yeah, I've watched the first 3-4 episodes. My favourite scene so far is when the new marketing guy is trying to come up with new tunes for the stadium. And
I've seen that clip, all right, yeah.
It is literally a scene from The Office. On Tiger King, I mean, it's outrageous, and you just could not make up these characters. After a while, it just becomes incredibly sad, the whole thing. Like, it's just one tragic character after another.
There's a freak show aspect to it that I really, really, really didn't enjoy at all. And I went through about 3 or 4 episodes myself, and I just found myself going, I don't really want to watch these people anymore, and I don't really want to wallow in what's going on here anymore. So I think I'll just walk away and leave it. I think it'll be okay and be the better for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still sort of recommend it, but it's too much grimness to it, to say the least.
If only because everybody else is talking about it.
Yeah, you kind of have to know what's going on.
There is that. Every now and then on Twitter, Joe Exotic is trending, and it's because a new cohort of people have just finished watching it. So we'll wrap things up there, fellas. Richie, thank you as ever. Nathan Murphy, much obliged. Thank you.
Cheers, lads.
That is your news round for this evening. So again, between 8 and 9, Ronan O'Gara and Brian O'Driscoll in conversation. And then between 9 and 10, we have Mark Chapman, presenter of Match of the Day 2, with us for a feature interview. Up next, it's Neil Mellor.
I was so pleased to just be there and be playing.